and we'll start in the NFL. Training camps are getting underway, which means the season is just around the corner, and the big news starts and ends in Green Bay, really to start training camp in this news cycle, because we've been watching Aaron Rodgers and this tension that he has with that organization for the last 4 months. But it appears, based off of reports from some high-level NFL insiders, that Aaron Rodgers will report tomorrow in Green Bay and that they're working on a contract that would make him happy for at least this season. And the organization is doing everything possible, Gary, to get Aaron Rodgers back under center, because this is an extremely talented Super Bowl-ready team. So after all that's been said and all the reading through the tea leaves of the offseason, does this seem like the resolution we were expecting?
You know, Evan, there was a time where I thought Aaron Rodgers might really walk away or force Green Bay's hand into a trade. But as this date had drawn closer and Aaron had not slammed the door on that, in fact, had left open the possibility of playing in Green Bay, both privately and publicly, then that's when it started to seem it was headed this direction. And now everybody's doing what they've got to do to make sure the most important thing happens, and that's as Aaron Rodgers is playing quarterback for the Green Bay Packers. They're reportedly going to make some concessions to make him a bit happier. And then on the flip side of it, walking away would have cost him roughly $22 million. And that's a lot of money, even to people who have a lot of money. So where we're at now is the most sensible place to be. I can't promise you that Aaron Rodgers is going to be happy. I can't promise you that he'll be cordial with his general manager. But again, the most important thing is that he's going to be playing quarterback for the Green Bay Packers. And now it appears that is exactly what's going to happen.
It seems like a really reasonable resolution to what at times felt like an extremely volatile situation. And in these scenarios, you have to be careful to not just have a revisionist history and think, oh, well, this is kind of what makes sense. This is what we would have thought all along. Because to your point, there were times where people did have him walking away from football, or we did have him traded to the Denver Broncos over the course of the draft weekend. But it makes sense for both sides, and for Aaron to understand the leverage that the Green Bay Packers just have in this situation. And he's just too good and has too much passion for the sport of football to walk away at this point in his career. So we all win in this regard. It sounds like he'll get more than he was expected to get this year, which he deserves. And as fans, we get to watch arguably the best quarterback playing right now back under center with a really talented team. All right, Gary, let's move to college sports and the big rumors of OU and Texas leaving the Big 12. Well, those rumors became official today with an announcement from both schools releasing a joint statement saying they would not renew their media agreements with the conference in 2025. This certainly seems to point to these two schools heading to the SEC likely before the 2025 season. So as we view this over the last few days and into last week, were you caught off guard by the news initially, and now where we stand on a Monday?
The news first broke last week that Oklahoma and Texas were at least exploring the possibility of leaving the Big 12 and joining the SEC. You know, I'm not going to lie to you. There had been very few whispers about that. It didn't come out of nowhere, but there had not been a lot of speculation on that in recent weeks or months. So the initial report, I think, was surprising basically from coast to coast. But once that came out, getting here today, not surprising at all, because when the report initially was published, neither Oklahoma nor Texas denied it. They just sort of talked around it. So now here we are. And it's obviously devastating for the Big 12, you know, to lose your two biggest brands, whether they go to the SEC or somewhere else, puts the Big 12 in a really tough situation where just figuring out a way to survive as a league isn't the easiest thing in the world. And I know a lot of people on the SEC side of things will celebrate this because it will make that conference, you know, bigger and theoretically better. But Evan, I've been covering realignment news for a long time now, and every one of these decisions, you know, they're never motivated by what's best for a conference or what's best for a school or what's best for tradition or a sport or a rivalry. It's always motivated by money, and that's what this one is too. Texas, Oklahoma, and the SEC are going to all make more money by linking up, and that's how we ended up in this place.
So now let's look at the Big 12 side of things here, because the ripple effect is going to be felt ongoing here for probably the next months and year when it comes to the other institutions and their decisions. We've already heard rumors about Kansas to the Big Ten, maybe West Virginia joining the ACC. It's hard to say this right now, Gary, but sitting here, your confidence level that the Big 12 will even exist in a few years.
It's not great. This is a league that put out a statement earlier today that said their plan is to have these 8 schools stick together and continue to try to be the best conference that it can be. But the truth is, the 8 remaining schools are already looking around, whether it's Kansas, Iowa State, West Virginia. Everybody knows that the Big 12 is in a real fragile place right now. And so the conference office will try to hold it together. But, if Kansas can leave for the Big Ten or Iowa State can leave for the Big Ten, they're going to do it. If West Virginia can leave for the ACC, they're going to do it. So just to circle back to your question, I'm not real confident the Big 12 is going to exist in a few years. It's been a fragile Power 5 conference for a little while now, and obviously never more fragile than it is right now.
And USA basketball has been under the microscope for the last few weeks here, as it was a bumpy start of exhibition play out in Vegas, and it didn't get any better. They lost to France 83-76 on Sunday. It's the first loss in the Olympics for Team USA since 2004. Are you surprised by this result, or is this what we should have expected based off of what we saw when this team was put together and got a few chances to take on international competition ahead of the Olympics?
Well, Evan, I am surprised that I have now watched the United States basketball team lose 3 times in the month of July, twice in exhibitions and then in this Olympic game against France. But once we saw what the problems were in the exhibitions, we almost shouldn't be surprised by anything that happens in Tokyo. Yes, the United States still has most of the most talented players in the world on this roster, but there are a lot of things working against the United States, and the most obvious one is continuity. As a country, we just take some really talented guys and put them together and say, all right, now go play, even though you're unfamiliar with each other. To the contrary, these other countries, they've got guys who have committed to the national program, over years and years and years. They play together more often, more consistently. They know how to play together. Our team, it appears, does not right now. And then the international rules work against these NBA players. The game's more physical. That's not great for the way the game is played in the NBA. It's more of a passing game than a pick and roll game. That's another problem. The 3-point line is shorter, so there's not as much space to play in, not as much space to drive in. That's another problem. And so, I still think the most likely scenario is USA basketball winning a gold medal, but it is certainly not a sure thing. And we were reminded of that over the weekend.
Yeah, it feels like every couple games, Team USA needs a wake-up call, and it appears to be coming here in 2021 in Tokyo. Time to put a shine on football, and we'll start in Houston, where Deshaun Watson did report to Texans camp and arrived despite the civil lawsuits, Gary, that continue to exist against him. Reports broke that Houston will now consider trading Deshaun Watson, this after an offseason where they've made it clear that they barely would answer the phone and would not even return calls on trade offers for Deshaun Watson. The price tag, if you believe reports, are multiple first-round picks for Deshaun Watson. So the price level is still high in the eyes of the Houston Texans for a franchise-level quarterback, but they are now willing to at least hear those offers. Do you see Watson playing in Houston this season, or does this now allow teams to come in, swoop in, and try and grab a Pro Bowl caliber player with some serious, and we should say that, baggage off the field right now?
Yeah, I mean, I obviously can't speak for every franchise, but I can speak for myself. And there is no scenario where I'd be running an NFL franchise and pursuing a trade for Deshaun Watson. Evan, 22 women have accused him of either sexual assault or sexual harassment. That's a lot. Innocent till proven guilty. I got it. But that's a lot. And I don't know how you could feel comfortable being a franchise that brings to your city an alleged sexual predator. And beyond that, right now the NFL has mostly stayed out of this. But if there is ever some sort of suspension or punishment, there's no guarantee that even if you traded for Deshaun Watson, he'd be able to play for you, throughout this entire season. So right now, this is Houston's problem. And if I were any of the other 31 NFL franchises, I would allow it to remain Houston's problem. I would have no interest in it.
And it is Houston's problem in another regard too, Gary, because he is under contract there and they have to make the decision, do they play him? I mean, Deshaun has been completely removed from the organization all offseason by his own volition, wanting a trade. And then all of this unfortunate news breaks about some of his off-the-field actions. And now the Texans, who also have Tyrod Taylor under contract for a little over $5 million as an established vet to take over if Watson was not to be available. They also used their top pick on a quarterback. So what Houston does here is really going to be interesting to watch. A tough proposition for a first-year head coach in David Culley. Let's head out to Arizona, where there's another disgruntled high-level talent, and this would be Chandler Jones, who reportedly requested a trade this offseason after not getting the extension that he felt like he deserved. This is a multi-time Pro Bowler, pass rusher, but coming off a biceps injury and a down year in 2020. But the idea of not having Chandler Jones and J.J. Watt on either edge is not something that the Arizona Cardinals are interested in. How do you come down on this one, Gary?
Well, I understand it on some level from Chandler Jones' perspective. He has watched this franchise give, $28 million to J.J. Watt. He's watched this franchise extend multiple other players who were under contract, some players who were even, had multiple years on their contract. So he's looking up and saying, if you're going to do that for these people, why not do it for me? Again, I get it. But as you accurately noted, he is coming off of bicep surgery. And there is no rule that says you can't play on the last year of a contract, that a franchise must extend you or trade you. And so at this point, I don't think Arizona has any intention of extending him. I don't think Arizona has any intention of trading him. So we'll see if he shows up on Tuesday or if he makes this situation more complicated than it already is.
If I'm Chandler Jones, I can be frustrated, but I can also understand the opportunity in front of me. At 31 years old, I'm going to make $15 million in the final year of my deal on the opposite edge of J.J. Watt, which means it's hard for defenses to solely key on me. He could have a bounce-back season, and the money he could get in the open market at 32 could be pretty nice as well. So this is a situation, despite not what he wanted, maybe contractually, that could work out in the end for Chandler Jones.
Thank you for watching. Please like and subscribe, and don't forget to hit the bell for more videos.